Well, good morning. And welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio this morning. Yes, yesterday, as you are all aware, we had some technical difficulties. As a matter of fact, we lost power at the transmitter. I want to thank everyone who sent a message to that number on the bottom of the screen telling me that we were off the air. We actually had a surge here in the studio when I was talking with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. So we knew something was up. So what we decided to do to make lemonade out of lemons, as we were off the air, Joe and I taped a interview that we will be playing in the 7 o'clock hour. So yes, there is a brand new Joe Sempolinski interview coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, and it is good. We covered a lot. We had a lot of fun broadcasting to no one, but at the same time knowing that you'll be able to see it this morning. So that is coming up at 7 o'clock. So no need to worry. I know I received a lot of comments. No, not during Joe. I know. We were all disappointed. So we are making the best of it, and we have a great interview at the 7 o'clock hour. That means our good friend Tony Pucci has been kind enough to reschedule, and we will have him on Monday to tell us about his new book in the Michael Bishop Mystery Series. So that is on Monday. All right, so that sets the scene this morning. But again, I cannot thank you enough for commenting yesterday and saying, what happened? I know, it was weird. It was almost, just to set the scene from my perspective, I just started asking him about the Trump verdict, and all our lights here in the studio went off as he started talking. It was very kind of funny. So we'll hear from Joe in a little bit. And thank you again to everybody reaching out. So we have a lot to get to in this hour. A lot of breaking news. Yesterday, of course, the 80th anniversary of D-Day. I see President Biden had a little bit of a confusion, not knowing whether to sit down at a certain point. His wife telling him not, looks like anyway, not to sit down. It was very awkward. Seemed to be uncertain whether it was time to sit down. In part of Biden's speech to D-Day veterans, he appeared to misspeak while urging allies to support Ukraine in its war against Russia, saying the hundreds of thousands of Russian military personnel were killed in Ukraine. Quote, "They've suffered tremendous losses with Russia. The numbers are staggering. 350,000 Russian troops dead or wounded." Later, Biden claimed in an interview with David Muir that he's known Vladimir Putin for over 40 years, notwithstanding the fact that Putin served as an undercover KGB intelligence officer for the Soviet Union throughout the entire 1980s. Quote, "I've known him for over 40 years. He's concerned me for 40 years. He's not a decent man." Then another video showed Biden walking off with his wife Jill as the president of France, Macron, continued to greet and chat with World War II veterans. In a hot mic moment, Biden appeared to say to Macron, "My advance team said I got to be the first one to leave." The list goes on and on. But there's the politicalization of the anniversary of D-Day, I think for many was very frustrating. For instance, Stephen Collinson, this is actually the second day he's had essentially the same opinion on it. Biden defends democracy in Europe while Trump undermines it at home. The former president is making his 2024 opponent's case that the West is being challenged by unprecedented threats to the rule of law from hostile forces outside and in. But Trump's strength also suggests that the centerpiece of Biden's trip, an homage on Friday in Normandy to one of former President Reagan's greatest speeches, may fall on many deaf ears back in America. The former president is showing in every speech and public appearance that the seduction of demagoguery, the demonization of outsiders, and the language of extremism is as potent now as it was before World War II. Isn't this interesting? First of all, I find it very fascinating that Stephen Collinson and others, all of a sudden, big fans of the Gipper, big fans of Ronald Reagan because of his speech at Normandy. But in this case, you have another example of really what the New York Times has already told us. They do not have to be fair. They do not have to present the facts. They can really lie and make up anything they want to push the agenda, which is to ensure that Trump is not reelected. So Trump is a threat like we saw before World War II. Do you see what he's equating Trump to in this scenario? I'm not going to go through this piece because you understand, and I'm sure you saw many like it throughout the coverage yesterday. There's also this, and for whatever reason, Drudge Report has been very, obviously, as you may know, if you're a Drudge Report user, very anti-Trump. And what they've been talking about on many outlets is this fear of retribution. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but this fear of retribution. Trump's out to get everybody. While they had a sham trial to try to, and succeed in, charge him with 34 felonies, convict him of 34 felonies, and I think their ultimate goal is to jail him. So it's interesting that I think it's called projection. They're projecting, right? That he's a threat to democracy while we try to keep him off the ballots, while we try to put him in jail, a political opponent in jail, et cetera, et cetera. And he has made it clear, and the New York Post highlighted this today as well in their giant whopper section of the week, that he has said and stated that this wouldn't be good for the country, this retribution. That this is what's making America fall apart, that he isn't going to, no one wants that no one wants him to have this kind of retribution against his political opponents because it's not right. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But to just tie this in, just kind of wrap this all up in a bow, Hillary Clinton also had a disgusting remark in regards to D-Day. Because remember, nothing's off limits when it comes to politics. 80th anniversary of D-Day, not off limits. Nothing is. I mentioned it yesterday on the program. You know, around Thanksgiving, you'll see the article, How to Talk to Your Family Members About Your Hatred of Trump and Why They Should Hate Him Too. Those type of things. Nothing is sacred from politics any longer. Not even the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Hillary Clinton said in a post on X, quote, 80 years ago today, thousands of brave Americans fought to protect democracy on the shores of Normandy. This November, all we have to do is vote. So think about that. And you know, we had that in the past with, remember Antifa? That violent terrorist organization, really, fighting fascism while using fascism. It was one of those, well, same with this projection that we talk about, Trump being a threat to democracy, right? It's the same kind of idea, this projectionism. So with that group, they compared themselves, and many in the media as well, compared Antifa to the heroes that stormed the beaches of Normandy. Think of that. So that's not very different from what Hillary Clinton is saying here, that you are no different than those heroes on that day 80 years ago that stormed the beaches of Normandy. You're no different if you go and vote against Trump. As a Red State writer wrote, just pure evil, comparing the sacrifices of those who died to defeat Hitler and retake Europe to Democrats voting against Donald Trump is sick and disgusting. There's many who said worse. That was one of the more kinder statements, according to Fox News. One conservative account wrote, yes, I know what it was like for those soldiers on Omaha Beach, ducking machine gun fire. I went to vote. I am braver than the troops. Adding, Hillary has never recovered from Trump's win. It really is. Now, this is not the first time Hillary has compared Trump to Hitler, calling him at one point grifter Hitler. So keep this in mind when they talk about the divide in the country. We started the program with that yesterday. The divide in this country, as they feed that divide, as they fan the flames of hatred towards Trump and his supporters. And I should probably keep a list of all that we mentioned. Katie Couric, we mentioned all these people that had very similar lines to what Hillary originally said, the infamous deplorables line, or Obama's basket full of deplorables, or bitter clingers from Obama, where you had what Katie Couric said. You had, I'm trying to think, there's just a laundry list. Oh, our own governor, Hochul, calling Trump supporters clowns, essentially saying not welcome in New York. So it's interesting to see this. By the way, as they make these comparisons, isn't it also fascinating to think that the party that is pushing this is also the party that are supporting the protesters that are anti-Israel, that are spewing this anti-Semitic rhetoric that is very reminiscent of Germany in the late 30s. This idea of intimidating Jewish people on campus, not just students, but faculty, using the language that we've seen time. And I've actually got, if I can, for just a moment, well, when we come back, I'll give you just some quick examples of that, showing you yet again that it's not just on college campuses, and that it is something in the party, the Democrat Party, that is rearing its ugly head. We'll talk about that. We have quite a few things to get to. And as I mentioned, former Congressman Joe Semplinsky, current candidate for Assembly. We talked about local issues too, because there's some pretty important, there's always important elections. It's always important to vote, but some interesting things coming up on the local front. So that'll be in the 7 o'clock hour. Stay with us. We're just getting started here on Frankly Speaking and WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's Hot Tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Was your preemie baby fed a cow's milk baby formula such as Similac or Enfamil? If so, your child may be entitled to significant financial compensation. Evidence shows that cow's milk formulas increase the risk of NEC in premature babies, causing severe harm and even death. If your child was born premature and suffers from NEC, intestinal perforations, sepsis, cerebral palsy, or died as a result, you may have the right to sue for significant financial compensation. Call now for a free case review.
What's up, guys? What I'm about to show you is going to change the way you shave your head forever.
You can shave your head in 90 seconds or less.
With no cuts or nicks. It's 100% waterproof.
It even works in the shower.
Introducing Remington's Balder Boss. With increased flex and 5 dual-track floating head design, get over 60% more head coverage for a faster, closer shave and skin-close results.
No nicks, no scrapes. Fit in the palm of my hand, and the results were amazing.
Shave in the shower or with any foam or gel. With Japanese-grade steel blades, plow through the thickest of hair. Anytime, anywhere. There's even a pop-up trimmer to complete your perfect groove. Now, you can try the Remington Balder Boss in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. Complete with a 5-year limited warranty and 100% satisfaction guarantee. You can also get our ear, nose, and brow trimmer free. Just pay separate processing and handling.
Give it a try. You won't be disappointed.
Order your Balder Boss now.
Well, what do we have here?
He is back!
A come down or a comeback? A risk taker or a troublemaker? A lucky run or that's how it's done?
Great job, 5 team.
Surprise, surprise? 1, 2, 3, or seen it coming? A trophy hunter or a party crasher? What if it was all that and a whole lot more?
Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Akam. This is Frankly Speaking. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. A few comments from viewers. With the current administration, their form of democracy is saying you're free to vote for anyone you want as long as it's a Democrat. It's their way or the highway on everything, or you are a threat to democracy. Yes, that is the new talking point. In the past, you were essentially a Russian agent. They have these things that they beat to death, but they believe are very effective. And yes, if you go out and vote, I mean, if you look at Hillary Clinton's statement there, if you go out and vote for Trump, you are essentially a threat to democracy. You are on the wrong side of D-Day. Think of that. It is, well, it's what they're going to be pushing, folks. Get used to it. From now until November, then after November as well. depending on how the results go. Now, I said I would mention that the party that is got this anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, loud, vocal section of their party, Brianna Joy Gray, she worked at the Hill. Notice I said Hill. At the Hill, was fired just days after she rolled her eyes while interviewing the sister of an Israeli abducted on October 7th. Quote, "It finally happened. The Hill has fired me," she tweeted. "There should be no doubt that Rising the Hill has a clear pattern of suppressing speech, particularly when it's critical of the state of Israel." In a follow-up tweet, she said her firing was clearly part of a coordinated effort. Now, this is what is being speculated for the reason that she lost her job. She was interviewing Yarden Gonen, the sister of Romi Gonen, who was kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th. When Yarden Gonen told Gray that she hopes she believes female victims, remember what an important part of speech that became, believe all women. That was a few years back with the Me Too movement. But now, apparently, many in the Democrat Party have changed their attitude on that if those women are Israelis. So, Yarden Gonen told Gray that she hopes she believes female victims who say they were sexually assaulted by Hamas terrorists. That's when Gray rolled her eyes, at that statement, rolled her eyes and abruptly ended the interview. This is exactly what Gonen said. "I really hope that you, specifically, will believe women when they say they got hurt." Gray lets out a sigh, appears to roll her eyes, and says, "All right, thanks for joining. Stick around," as Gonen is still trying to get a word in. This is, well, that's how they treat people. That is no longer believe all women, at least not if they're Jewish women. Do not believe all women. That essentially is what is being said there. But she was fired. Now, and to show you how radical it's becoming, if you recall that piece that I mentioned probably a month ago now, where the new woke somehow believes, or the new left, I should say, somehow believe that swastikas are woke. A Florida tire shop owner is flying a Nazi flag to protest the modern-day Holocaust in Gaza. But the owner insists it's not anti-Semitic. It's just apparently making a statement. So keep in mind, this is where we're at in this country. A Florida tire shop is under fire for flying a Nazi flag outside a busy highway on Wednesday, as the owner defended his actions by claiming it is meant to protest a modern-day Holocaust in Gaza. Radi Ahmad, the owner of 904x4, said the stunt is his way of reminding people that the Palestinians what they're going through in Gaza is supposedly the same as what Jewish people experienced during World War II under Nazi Germany. Quote, "I put that out there to bring awareness, to bring remembrance, to let people understand we're living, or Palestinians are living, in a modern-day Holocaust." So that person, of course, not that far off, who wrote that article, that the swastika is not woke. Now, in that article, they referenced a situation where, and the man's name escapes me, but was questioned. He's an author. His name escapes me, though. They asked him, "Hey, what do you think about these swastikas that were spray painted, this graffiti on a synagogue?" And he said, well, the swastika was a symbol of hate, but now it's being used as a symbol of peace, meaning it was in protest of what was happening in Gaza. So that is, just remember, this is not just college campuses, and that's why perhaps I've focused on it so extensively in the fact that it was such a focus on college campuses. And we saw that build and build and build that momentum because it became fashionable to be anti-Semitic. And that's when it gets, well, it's always terrifying, but that's when you really have to realize that's why you're going to see what happened. I mentioned on the program yesterday at high school level in the quote-unquote real world. That's why I continue to bring it up, though, maybe on a somewhat positive note, as Ivy League schools prioritize activism at expense of academics, other schools rise to the top for employers. And Ricky Schlott writes at the New York Post that there's many organizations that now aren't even considering hiring Ivy League, as we had predicted on this program, that who wants to take the chance that you're hiring a radical anti-Semite or a woke pro-Palestinian camper. You don't want to take that chance. Many public colleges, topping the list of where to get future employees: Georgia Institute of Technology, University of Michigan, UNC Chapel Hill, University of Virginia, University of Wisconsin-Madison. Private colleges on the list include Boston College, Emory, Georgetown, Vanderbilt, and USC. These schools are being added to college lists and are being considered in a very similar light to the Ivy League, said a college admission consultant. Our clients are wanting to get into Ivies and Ivy Plus schools, including these so-called new Ivies. He put the estimation the applications to the private schools on the list have gone up to 10 to 15% among his clients in the past cycle. I've got to ask a question, too. Would you, right now, want to go to Columbia, for instance, and pay all that money, get an education? Who knows? You may be intimidated. You may be threatened. But would you want to go when at the end of the day your degree may not be worth what you paid for? And since we're talking, well, I better take a break. We've got a lot to get to. I don't want to run late because we do have former Congressman Joe Sempolinski coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Attention, if you were a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and now have uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call now to see if you qualify. There's no fee unless we win your case.
I was an athlete when I grew up, and I always wanted to stay near athletes. What drove me to orthopedics and sports medicine in general was the need and the want to help these patients from their time of injury and helping them with surgery and through the rehab, getting them back to the field. My patients are obviously very important to me. These athletes, weekend warriors, all of them, I really want them to get back and be doing the things that they want to be doing.
The Oak Ridge Boys American-Made Farewell Tour. Celebrating 50-plus years of touring. The legendary Oak Ridge Boys. August 1st, the Chemung County Fair. Reserve seats on sale now at ChemungCountyFair.com or the Fair box office. The Oak Ridge Boys American-Made Farewell Tour.
Made Baseball on Fox.
Hey, what I'm doing? Hey, getting right to it. The money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I do it. Yeah, can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, spin on live, you don't believe it, just watch.
Jaw-dropping stuff.
Major League Baseball all season long on Fox.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my number one goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
And we are back with Frankly Speaking. I want to highlight something before we get back into the topics of the day. And thank you to everybody commenting this morning. But listen to this. You know, there's so many golf fundraisers throughout the summer season, most going to amazing causes. Well, this is going to an amazing cause, and we can all play. It's mini golf. It's a benefit for our friends at the Painted Post Food Pantry. It's coming up on Tuesday of next week from 6 to 8 p.m., just $10. And if you can, bring a can, bring some food for the Painted Post Food Pantry. It's at Park Avenue Sports Center. That's 412 Park Avenue here in Corning. You may notice on the bottom of the screen, if it does rain, the rain date will be Tuesday, June 18th. I thought that was a fun idea, and I wanted to pass it along to you. Also, we appreciate the amazing work they do at the Painted Post Food Pantry. All right. Mother Jones, far left Mother Jones, says Trump's obsession with revenge, a big post-verdict danger. Who's really obsessed with revenge? Who is the one? What is the group bringing up this retribution, revenge? It's the media. They're hyping this up just like they're hyping up that he is a threat to democracy while ignoring the actual threat to democracy, such as the weaponization of the judicial system. The line here, just because I want to highlight that, yes, this is going to be common. The convicted felon has long held retaliation as a key to his success. The convicted felon. The guilty verdict adds more names to his hit list and will, without a doubt, intensify the already excessive and alarming lust for revenge that Trump, if elected, will bring with him back to the White House. What do you think? So let's use their terms here. Excessive and alarming lust for revenge. Wouldn't you say that going after your political opponent through the legal system may be excessive and alarming? Setting a precedent that, unfortunately, I think will be used, and we're going to talk with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski about this in the next hour, but will be used for years to come if they succeed in it. And so far, they believe they succeeded, and in some ways they have. They got the 34 felony convictions, but also now they can, until November, say that he's a convicted felon. Keep in mind, many have stated it, that it's very likely it'll be overturned on appeal. That does not matter. As Biden said, Trump got a fair trial, so he's got to stop undermining the rule of law. This is included in that interview with David Muir that we mentioned earlier, where he said that he was knew of Putin for over 40 years when Putin apparently was an undercover KGB agent. They were aware of each other. You did address Donald Trump and the guilty verdict on 34 felony counts before the American people. You told Americans to respect the jury and the outcome of the case. You were at a campaign fundraiser and you told the room a convicted felon is now seeking the office of presidency. You called it disturbing. What do you think the American people should make of it? That's what you call a softball question. Hey, do you want to set up an attack on your political opponent? Biden said, that's for the public to decide. One thing for certain is stop undermining the rule of law. Stop undermining the institutions. Isn't this the guy that's bragging about ignoring the Supreme Court and erasing school debt for the same students that you see protesting in anti-Semitic ways? Or how about the destroying the institutions or undermining the institutions, such as weaponizing the judicial system, trying to keep, if we want to talk about democracy, trying to just simply keep him off the ballot. But I'll continue with what the president said. That is what the whole effort is. MAGA Republicans are coming out saying this was a fix. This is a jury, a judge set up to get Trump. There is no evidence of that. So that's ignoring quite a few facts in that case. The judge who had donated to Biden, whose daughter works as a powerful Democrat consultant, that's not evidence of maybe some questionable issues in this trial. Or when you talk about how he presented what the juries were deciding, the jurors were deciding, and that was essentially, you're going to find a guilty verdict no matter what. And of course, you have far left New York City, where the jury pool's coming from. You have so many, even Democrats like former Governor David Patterson and others saying this wasn't a fair trial. This would have never, Fareed Zakaria, for heaven's sakes, from CNN, saying this would have never been brought to trial if it weren't Donald Trump being brought to trial. So and this is one of those ideas, just ignore it. It's like inflation. No, believe me, it was fair. Believe me, prices are great. Never mind what's happening when you go to the grocery store. Never mind that receipt that you just received. Never mind any of that. Never mind what you saw during that jury trial. What they're hoping for, and Democrats have a history of this, they're hoping that you're not paying attention. They're hoping that they really think of you as ignorant. If I'm going to boil it all down, to be honest about it, they really think, they're not that smart. They won't get it. They'll believe us. when I say there's no evidence of that. That's what they think of you. The president added, he's trying to undermine it. Look, he got a fair trial. The jury spoke like they speak in all cases and should be respected. In all cases. He's trying to undermine it. Look, oh man, that look thing gets a little old. But anyway, look, he got a fair trial. The jury spoke like they speak in all cases, and it should be respected. Now, Dan McLaughlin. Do I have time for this, or should we take a break? I'm going to take a break. Dan McLaughlin, when we come back, has this to say. Democrats fearing Trump's lawfare retribution have only themselves to blame. But they love pushing this as a part of their overall narrative. Threat to democracy, revenge, retribution. They're trying to scare you. Now, I think in some instances, there's people that saw how unjust that trial was and are saying, yeah, bring on the retribution. But the former president, no matter what they want to say, the former president says, no, the country doesn't need this. Country doesn't want this. It's not good for the country. It's destroying the country. So they can say what they want. They can, as they always do, misconstrue what he said, take it out of context. But you've seen that he's been very clear on that. We're going to tell you what Dan McLaughlin had to say when we come back. So stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
I'm Marianne Burke. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
Website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
Look at that beautiful view of Marcus Street. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm Frank Hagum. This is Frankly Speaking. A comment from a viewer. With all the technical difficulties that have occurred, yesterday we lost power of the transmitter. Have you considered that maybe the Democrats are sabotaging you to stifle your refreshing take on current political issues? Thank you. I think they probably, number one, have bigger fish to fry. Number two, yesterday's technical issue took out quite a few other stations that you could maybe say have different, maybe choose different political issues to discuss. How's that? Okay, but thank you very much for the comment. Democrats fearing Trump's lawfare retribution have only themselves to blame, writes Dan McLaughlin at the New York Post. He's a senior writer for National Review, and he says Democrats and their allies in the press are melting down at Donald Trump's talk of retribution through the legal system. They're the last people in the world that should talk. And that's the point. I mean, the audacity, again, they think you're ignorant. They're hoping you're not paying attention. Just believe what they say, not what you see with your eyes. As Trump has endured a criminal conviction, 3 other indictments, and a huge civil fraud judgment, all prosecuted by the Biden Justice Department and elected Democrats. He has spent months threatening to retaliate in kind. Quote, "I will be your retribution." Some Trump allies have already started drawing up lists of Democrats to prosecute. Joe Biden's campaign, without a shred of self-awareness, has warned that convicted felon Donald Trump is raising plans to jail his political opponents in just the latest proof that he will do anything to seek revenge on anyone who opposes him. That's an exact quote. Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe told CNN he's hearing from FBI employees who feel they may have to flee the country to avoid prosecution if Trump is elected. In a post-conviction interview with Sean Hannity, Trump insisted, quote, "I would have every right to go after them." But he also sounded a new, softer tone. When Biden goes out and everyone says bye-bye, and then he gets indicted 2 days later, the country doesn't want that. "I want to bring this country together." That's what Trump said. He insisted that this is why he never followed through on his 2016 lock her up threats to prosecute Hillary Clinton. Vindictive prosecutions on the part of a second Trump administration would be bad. Worse would be abusing the legal system by bringing legally bogus cases, submitting false evidence, establishing secret surveillance, stretching the law in all manner of unprecedented directions, and charging opponents for things that allies got away with. All of that has already been done to Trump. All of that has already been done to Trump. If he retaliates, Democrats will have nobody to blame but themselves. If you're going to break long-standing norms and indict a former president, you should have the goods to show that he committed something everybody knows is a crime. That's a very, very solid point. You should be able to point to a clear record of the law being used against both sides without fear or favor. Democratic prosecutors have done the complete opposite. Trump's New York conviction for lying to his own checkbook should never have been brought to trial. Nobody had ever before been charged under state law for violating federal campaign laws, and prosecutors never even tried to prove the central element of the charge, that Trump created false business records with intent to use them to defraud someone. There was no evidence that the private records were even meant to see the light of day. There was no victim in that case. Just as there was no victim in Letitia James's civil fraud case that smacked Trump with almost $500 million in fines. Trump was charged with the same thing Hillary Clinton's campaign did, taking campaign expenses and misrecording them as legal expenses. Hillary got a modest fine. Trump got branded a felon. Jack Smith's indictment of Trump in Washington, D.C. charges him with a conspiracy to defraud the United States by his out-in-the-open scheme to get Congress to throw out Biden's electoral votes. Never mind that the Supreme Court for a century has ruled that the conspiracy statute doesn't apply to elections or to open resistance to government action. Trump's Justice Department never went after Hillary for mishandling national security information through an insecure private email server. Joe Biden has skated for sloppily stacking classified documents in his garage after being vice president. But Trump got charged for the same crime. Do you see a trend here? And I thought that's why I like how Dan McLaughlin puts it kind of all into focus. The case in Georgia was such a political boondoggle, it's now been indefinitely suspended by the appeals court. This has been going on for a while. The FBI submitted bogus evidence, some of it produced by the same Hillary Clinton campaign operation, to get secret warrants to spy on Trump's campaign. The Russiagate probe pursued the non-existent crime of collusion, even while Jim Comey was testifying under oath to Congress that Trump wasn't under investigation. That probe went on for 2 years. It didn't start with Trump either. Democrats loved the independent counsel law and used it to torment the Reagan and Bush administrations until it was turned against Bill Clinton. Legally dubious convictions, later overturned on appeal, took down Republicans such as Representative Tom DeLay and Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, who was prosecuted by the same Jack Smith who's now pursuing Trump. The most ridiculous was when Texas Governor Rick Perry was indicted for using his power as governor to try to get rid of a corrupt Democratic prosecutor. I hope Democrats aren't given a taste of the medicine they served to Trump, but if they do, it's a potion of their own making. I thought that was great by Dan McLaughlin at the National Review, just kind of, again, putting it all into focus. And then now they say, and again, we're going to talk about this with Joe Semplinsky in just a little bit, but they say, well, see, there's no two-tier justice system because Hunter Biden is being charged. And you cannot compare the two. We know that. But you have to accept the fact that if you believe that premise, that we have to ignore Hunter Biden had that sweetheart plea deal that his lawyer screwed up for him. So if you ignore that, and you ignore the fact that Trump was in deep blue New York, and, of course, Hunter in the hometown in Delaware, ignore all of those things, that it's all fair. Now, Biden says he won't pardon his son if he's convicted of the gun charges. David Muir asked in the interview again that if he would accept the outcome of Hunter's trial. He said yes. All right. Now, they say that this is really tormenting the president. Boy, I guess yesterday got a little bit, well, it's awkward, isn't it? I mean, you've got a scenario where his former lovers, former sister-in-law turned lover, reporting about how often he smoked crack cocaine. But did you know, well, you know what? I'm going to take a break because I don't want to run late. And I'm not going to talk too much about the Hunter trial, but there is, Miranda Devine put together a piece about Hallie Biden, showing that Hunter's ex-lover, Hallie Biden, who was also his brother's wife, or widow, that Hallie's tragic tale exposes the rotten core of the Biden family. It does start to look very mob-like there in Delaware when you get down to the brass tacks. It starts to look very Kennedy dynasty-esque. And she says a very Delawarean tragedy played out in room 4A at the district courthouse in Wilmington Thursday as Hallie Biden testified for the prosecution at her former lover, Hunter Biden's felony gun trial. The president's widowed daughter-in-law was supposed to become the first lady of Delaware, maybe first lady of the United States. A Wilmington native told me while observing the day's drama, yes, because when Bo was still around, before he passed away in 2015 of brain cancer, many believed that he would be running for office. He would be the next in line. So what heights would he soar to? Instead, here was Hallie, 50 years old, in the witness box, having to tell strangers about the torrid affair and crack addiction she shared with her late husband's black sheep brother in the ensuing 3 years. It was a terrible experience, she said. I went through, and I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed. I regret that time in my life. The slender brunette, dressed somberly in a black pantsuit. We don't need to go through all that. That's weird how that continues to be a thing in trials now. Running the gauntlet of Biden family and friends packed into rows behind Hunter and his lawyers. Hunter's second wife, Melissa Cohen, sat in the front row beside his aunt, Valerie Biden Owens, the president's sister, who has taken Jill Biden's seat while the first lady is in France for the D-Day commemorations. Aunt Val whispered in Melissa's ear from time to time throughout the morning. According to text messages on Hunter's abandoned laptop, Aunt Val is no fan of Bo's widow, with Hunter telling a friend that Val tried to stop Bo from marrying Hallie. Yeah, many believed Hallie was beneath the Bidens at the time. No doubt the family dynamic in the courtroom was evident to Hallie from the minute she walked past the president's portrait in the lobby of the federal building. Yes, the president's portrait in the lobby of that federal building. A reminder of the power of her former father-in-law, who had paid her a curious late-night visit 12 days earlier. And isn't that right there? Could you imagine the headlines if it were Trump? If he visited Cohen 12 days before the trial. What happened there? And the fact the media does not report on that he went to, after we learned about his power in Delaware, that he went to visit one of the star witnesses, Hallie Biden, before the trial, under some concept that he was visiting because Bo's death 9 years ago, it was longer than that, right? I can't remember what year I said, but years before, The anniversary was coming up in a few days. So that's when he chose to talk to her on the 9th, I think it was the 9th anniversary. She testified that it was Hunter who introduced her to crack cocaine in 2015 or 2016, soon after they began a romantic relationship. She had been clean for 2 months on October 23rd, 2018, when she threw his new Colt Cobra handgun in an open trash can. And I got to skip ahead here. But basically what it boils down to for Hallie, at least there is a happy ending. She remarried last weekend to wealthy Ohio financial broker John Hopkins Anning and had a large diamond ring on her finger. She broke into smiles when she spotted Anning in the courtroom, sitting on the opposite side from the Bidens. So her tragic tale exposes the rotten core of the Biden family. That's what the New York Post reports. We got to take a short break. I know I'm running late now. We'll be right back.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Attention, if you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and now have uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call now to see if you qualify. There's no fee unless we win your case.
The Oak Ridge Boys American-made farewell tour. Celebrating 50-plus years of touring. The legendary Oak Ridge Boys. August 1st, the Chemung County Fair. Reserve seats on sale now at ChemungCountyFair.com or the Fair box office. The Oak Ridge Boys American-made farewell tour.
Frankly speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here in Portland Studio. Recording on your host, Frank Davis. Coming up in just a moment, comment from the viewer, and I think this is really good. Glanced over, I got to mention, but I thought the same thing when I was reading President Joe Biden claimed during an interview on Thursday that he will accept the results of his son's criminal trial and will not pardon him if he is convicted. Must be he feels the fix is already in. Well, you know, we talked about it yesterday, and we're going to talk about it a little bit with, the desktop audio played long. Apologize about that. We'll get that back on track. Thank you for giving me the heads up. I always don't know where we come back in. So this is the comment from the viewer. President Joe Biden claimed during an interview on Thursday that he will accept the result of his son's criminal trial and will not pardon him if he is convicted. Must be he feels the fix is already in. And I think that's a really good point. That's kind of what I felt with that, because yesterday, and we're going to talk about it with Joe Semplinsky in a little bit, but the power that you don't realize that the Biden family has in Delaware. They own that town, essentially. That kind of statement, he owns this town. So they've got to feel pretty confident. I really believe that. Just as many of us felt confident in the bad way that Trump would be convicted because of where the trial was, because of the judge, because of the jury, etc. So he must feel the same thing that, this trial's not going to go against the Biden. They had people in that piece from Miranda Devine, I think it was from Miranda Devine, saying that they didn't want the gun charges. The person who sold the guns to Hunter, they were upset it became a scandal because they thought it would look as if they were going against the Bidens. You don't want to go against the Bidens in that town. Keep that in mind. Hunter's ex-lover, London Roberts, was interviewed by Piers Morgan yesterday on his YouTube channel. London Roberts, she's the mother of the 5-year-old granddaughter of President Joe Biden. She stated in the interview they have yet to meet. Joe Biden and his 5-year-old granddaughter yet to meet. While Roberts said Hunter and the child have been building a relationship on Zoom. No one else in the Biden family, including the president and First Lady Jill Biden, have personally met her. She described a complicated relationship with the troubled first son and feeling hurt when he denied having a relationship with her. I can remember just reading it and just not having any words, she told Morgan. She admitted at one point she was even suicidal, but didn't want to do anything to the baby. That her pregnancy was one of the loneliest times of her life. I went through some pretty dark times emotionally and mentally during that time, adding that she thought of suicide but would never do that while pregnant. I'm not going to go through her whole story here. I'm sure you're aware of it. But it is interesting that even though Joe Biden was forced to essentially acknowledge the granddaughter, has not done anything about it since, has not met the granddaughter. I don't think ever since that, and it was part of a lawsuit really for Hunter, I don't think since he acknowledged the granddaughter has said anything else about her, as far as I'm aware. Now, she's got a book out called Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden. Roberts seemed forgiving of Hunter for at one point having the audacity to ask if Navy was really his. She battled a lengthy legal struggle with him, finally settled 1 year ago, so he would acknowledge paternity and provide child support. But Roberts said she has always given the man she calls Hunt a lot of grace. I feel like Hunter is one of those people that have always had great potential, and he's an amazing person to know. I always hoped that the demon and that addiction wouldn't just pull him down, because I saw it had sank its claws into him. I always hoped that he was getting help. But Joe Biden yet to meet his 5-year-old granddaughter. We got to take another short break, last break of this hour. We've got former Congressman Joe Semplinsky, because yes, yesterday we lost power of the transmitter. That's what happened. So Joe was kind enough to stay here and do an interview for us while we were off the air, so I could play it for you today, because I know, I'm happy to admit that he is a fan favorite. So I didn't want you to miss the opportunity to hear from former Congressman, current Assembly candidate, and current chairman of the Steuben County Republican Committee, Joe Semplinsky. That also means, though, just so you're aware, our friend Tony Pucci, who I know many of you are fans of I'm drawing a complete blank. His mystery series books. Wow. Sorry, long week, folks. As you could tell with the technical issues yesterday, we've had a long week. Michael Bishop mystery series, excuse me. I'm a big fan. I know many of you are. Well, Tony Pucci is the author of that series. He's going to join us on Monday. He was kind enough to let us move his interview to Monday, so don't miss out on that. But right now, we've got to take a break. Stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
We live in an area full of beautiful destinations, breathtaking mountains, rivers, trails, and waterfalls, often hidden gems just waiting to be discovered. We would like to fuel your discovery this summer. Use our Quick Fill app to navigate to your next adventure and enter to win in our Fueling Discovery Summer Giveaway. No matter where, we'll get you there and proudly fuel the drive.
We are back. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Frankly Speaking, the Friday morning edition. It is 6:54. Coming up in just a moment, hour 2 of Frankly Speaking. In that hour 2, so good time talking about everything. I do want to mention this, though. Attorney General Merrick Garland will defy the GOP's congressional subpoenas. Any of the ones he doesn't agree with, things he doesn't like. Garland's statement came after Republican leaders in Congress. I apologize. I'm not sure why the desktop audio is doing that. I apologize. But as I was mentioning, Joe Sempolinski is going to join us in the next hour, so I'm going to take a break a little bit early. That is so weird that's done that twice now. Yes, I apologize. So Attorney General Merrick Garland said this week that he will defy subpoenas from congressional Republicans that he does not agree with. Garland's statement came after Republican leaders in Congress threatened to hold him in contempt in their efforts to gain access to audio recordings from special counsel Robert Hur's investigation. Garland reportedly requested for the president to claim executive privilege. You know all about that. Speaking before the House Judiciary Committee this week, Garland accused Republicans of seeking contempt as a means of obtaining, for no legitimate purpose, sensitive law enforcement information that could harm the integrity of future investigations. This effort is only the most recent in a long line of attacks on the Justice Department's work. So just ignore what he doesn't want to pay attention to. All right, couple quick housekeeping things. Don't forget, and I drove by yesterday. I wasn't able to attend, but I drove by the Miss Colonial Days pageant. Boy, they had a great crowd. I'll try to get those winners for you when I can. But don't forget, it is Colonial Days weekend in Paint and Post. And that is, let me just get that on the screen for you so you have all the information yourself. That is today at 6 to 9. The Rock the Block, Blue Eyed Soul, is going to perform at the Sit and Bowl parking lot. That is today. Tomorrow is the Colonial Days Parade from 10:30 till noon. And then after the parade from noon until it is all gone, the chicken barbecue, and tickets were available at local businesses, also, I believe, at the event. And then on today and tomorrow, the crafts fair with local vendors in Village Square. So don't miss all of those fun events at Colonial Days in Paint and Post. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, our makeup interview. When we lost power to the transmitter, Joe was kind enough to stay around and record an interview, and it is going to be as fresh today as it was yesterday because we covered Trump, the verdict. Because we haven't talked to, you realize that we haven't talked to Joe since the verdict came down. So that'll be interesting. Talk about VP choices, talk a little bit about Hunter's trial. So stay right there. Fan favorite, former Congressman Joe Sempolinski, when we return with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Don't forget, that is part of the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
Wow, you found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
This is an important message for firefighters, members of the military, and airport workers. For decades, first responders and firefighters at military bases and airports used a chemical-based foam to fight fires. Studies have shown that chemicals used to make aqueous film-forming foam, or AFFF, are highly toxic to humans and have been associated with several types of cancer. If you or someone you know was diagnosed with any of those cancers, call now for a free case review.
Discover the fresh berries, melons, and more at Wegmans, arriving daily all summer long.
In a few words. Urkel, glasses. Nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknights at 5 and 5:30 on Big Fox.
What do we have here? Surprise, surprise, or seen it coming? A trophy hunter or a party crasher?
here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. This is the Stu Benz Senior Services section of our program. And yesterday, we had big problems with our transmitter. So today, we're talking with Joe Seplinski. Thanks so much for doing this, Joe. I'm throwing me all off with all these technical issues.
You know, the power surge came in and all heck broke loose. And what are you going to do?
We're talking literally about Trump's verdict, and as mysteriously, the power goes out.
You draw your own conclusions. People out in TV land, what happens when you start talking too nice about Donald J. Trump?
Well, and those that missed the 5 minutes you were on live, let's talk a little bit about it, because last time we were on, he wasn't a convicted felon. And as we were saying, really, this was all done, the weaponization of the judicial system, just so he can be called a convicted felon.
They're trying to put that label on him. That's what we were talking about. Yep. And that is clearly, transparently, the whole point. Because as soon as it came down, every pundit on social media from the left to say, well, how can you support a convicted felon? As if they were ready to go.
Oh, they were ready.
And that is why you had something that should have been a FEC violation or a misdemeanor turned into 34 felonies. It would not have been 34 felonies for anybody else.
Right.
The FEC looked at it, declined to pursue it.
Right.
The DOJ looked at it, declined to pursue it. So you had Alvin Bragg in Manhattan deciding to turn what was, something that should have been handled in a particular way for anybody else, or anybody that wasn't running for president of the United States as a Republican, into something that's 34 felonies, specifically for that label to be put on Donald Trump in the election. If that's not election interference, I really don't know what is.
Well, and when you have Fareed Zakaria from CNN saying that if this weren't Trump, this would not have went to trial.
That's right.
I think even people that can't stand Trump and hate Trump and will never vote for Trump, they still have to see the stain of politics on this.
Right. And I think that is the advantage to Trump in this, is it sort of proves some of the things he's been saying all along, as far as that he's up against the system. Yeah. And if he can narratively make this election Trump versus the system even more than it is Trump versus Biden, that's to his advantage. And so you're going to have the Biden campaign and the Democrats saying convicted felon, convicted felon, convicted felon until they're blue in the face. And that was purely the point of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think the American people are smarter than that.
I do too. And I think this has caused, I know you've talked about it before, Joe, and I actually quote you a lot on this, but people might not like Donald Trump, but they really hate when government gets in their lives this way. They tell you who you can and cannot vote for. You have what Trump has called forever, the swamp or the deep state.
You had Republicans who are not super Trump allies.
Right.
Mitt Romney.
Yes.
Susan Collins. Governor Kemp in Georgia. Come out pretty quickly, pretty aggressively, saying, hey, this is not how you're supposed to do things, with each of their own spins on it.
Right.
But it wasn't something where you had, a quarter or a third or a fifth of the Republican Party break off and say, denounce Trump. You had sort of this galvanization. Even if people are not particularly excited about Trump himself or whatever their particular position may be, you had this galvanization of the right of going, this particular trial was grossly inappropriate. And that in and of itself is important to help Trump. And then the amount of money, the amount of money that Trump raised off this organically, hundreds of millions of dollars in the days that followed this, that completely leveled the playing field and tipped it toward Donald Trump as far as the money is concerned going into the general election.
Well, and I know some Democrats are celebrating it, but don't you think the Democrats that are kind of in the know, working behind the scenes on Biden's campaign or on Democrat policies in general, have got to be saying, look at the numbers that this brought in. This was not, it's fun for them to say convicted felon, but at the end of the day, was this the right move?
Yeah, and I think, if you contrast, like I'm saying, if you go on social media and see some of these moderate Republicans, some of whom aren't even necessarily Trump supporters, saying that this trial is inappropriate, it was a little quieter than normal from the Democrats. And certainly you had their base get all giddy and what have you.
Yeah.
But some of the more savvy Democrats, it was either very tepid remarks or they were quiet. And I think some of them realized, we may have, we may have, grabbed the tiger by the tail here in a way that we shouldn't have.
I think so. It's going to be interesting to see. I know all the talk now is convicted felon and retribution, right? He's going to go after them. he's already said no one wanted this.
Right.
We didn't want, you shouldn't have wanted this when it was against me. We don't want to put the country through this. So it's not about retribution. Now it's still Trump. So every once in a while he gets that little dig in.
Right.
But no one should want to see the weaponization of the judicial system in this way.
And the Democrats now have lost that entire argument.
Yes.
If your argument is if Donald Trump comes in, he's going to go after his political opponents, you've already done it.
Yes.
So if that's your argument, which by the way is Biden's argument, he's been fundraising off of that argument just in the last 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That no longer holds water.
Right.
How can you say, "Oh, we can't have somebody in the presidency, we can't have a party in power who will weaponize, government against their opponents"? Well, you're right. We can't. And the one who's doing it is Democratic Party and Joe Biden.
Yeah, I know. And it drives me crazy with this. And I don't know how to word this exactly without getting kind of upset. But CNN comes out with the Hunter Biden trial and says, see, there's no two-tier justice system. Right. Everything is fine. You guys are overreacting. You actually want this to happen. And I'm going, you can't compare. These are, I hate the term, but apples to oranges.
Right. Well, you have on one hand, you have somebody whose business may have misallocated a payment from a private company.
Right.
That was the allegation.
Yes. Yeah.
As opposed to somebody who's on tape arguing about how much crack he has with his prostitute. And which one is, I mean, come on.
But the thing that bothers me the most is you've got Trump in New York City. Never going to get a fair trial. Right. You had a biased judge, you had a biased jury, across the board. He's in his hometown of Delaware, where there's a great piece by Miranda Devine saying that they're royalty. In that town.
I mean, the Bidens are, what the Kennedys are in Massachusetts.
Right. The one shop owner that sold the gun said that they were upset when this became a scandal because they didn't want to look like they were going against the Bidens.
Right.
I mean, it sounded very mafia movie-esque, I
mean, Delaware's a very small state.
Yeah.
And everybody in that state knows who Hunter Biden is,
sure.
Who Joe Biden is. I've over the years worked with people who've worked in Delaware, and they are the most prominent family in the state of Delaware, and have been for decades. Mm-hmm. To say that there's not some sort of geographic local aspect of this is sort of silly. And I also find it funny that you have folks on the left who continually are critical of our criminal justice system, or anti-police, or what have you. Now all of a sudden, all of a sudden, say, no, you can't even question a trial.
How dare you?
It's how can you say something's not fair?
It's another threat to democracy because you're questioning your guilty verdict.
That's
if people don't question guilty verdicts, just as if one of the charges, essentially, I'm not a lawyer, against Trump was that he tried to keep something quiet that could hurt his campaign. Isn't that every campaign in the history of campaigns?
Well, the most analogous recent case that I can think of was John Edwards.
Yeah, exactly.
And Edwards, it was worse because Edwards was soliciting funds from major donors well above the amount of money you can have donated to a campaign, and using that to hush up his situation with his mistress and his child. He wasn't convicted.
No.
They looked into that and it ended up not being a conviction. And Trump, the argument is he used his own money.
Right.
And it's sort of not necessarily a situation you want to be in, but
sure,
paying somebody for a non-disclosure agreement is not illegal.
It's not illegal. I mean, the media is very good at making it more salacious than it is. Right. As so many people have said, non-disclosure agreements are very, very common.
Right.
So the way they twist themselves in a pretzel, and to add to the politics of it, we've got Alvin Bragg basically his whole career saying he's going to bring down Trump. Maybe that adds to it?
It's a dangerous precedent, whether it's Alvin Bragg or Letitia James, the Attorney General of the state of New York, where they're campaigning on, we don't like this guy.
Right.
And that's very dangerous. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be a crime occurs, we're going to find out who did it with no fear or favor.
Right. And that's why he kept saying that.
Right. And if somebody's powerful, you go after him.
Yep.
You can't say, oh, this person's bad.
Right.
I'm going to find a way to get him.
Right.
We're going to create a crime, or we're going to maybe take something that's a misdemeanor and puff it up into a felony just because this is the person that my political base wants me to get. If that's the type of situation we're going to have with elected attorney generals and elected district attorneys, we are in a very dangerous place as a republic. And you can simply not have that be acceptable behavior there has to be consequences for Alvin Bragg.
Well, and that's exactly like the former president said. If he can do this to me, he can do it to anybody.
Right.
And you've got to keep that in mind. And that's why I think you can't let your mind be corrupted by politics. You've got to look at this for what it is. You may hate Trump.
Right.
And that's fine if you hate Trump.
Right.
You don't have to vote for him. But think about the precedent this sets and what this does for the future of the country.
And that's where I was feeling a little more. It's a very negative situation for the country. But I was feeling a little bit positive. There was some of that. You had people who are not the type of folks that are going to support everything that Trump does, or maybe don't support him at all, saying, oh, this is not how things are supposed to work. And so, yeah, you have to remove. You may not even be voting for Donald Trump. You may not have ever voted for Donald Trump. The election and who you're going to vote for is a separate issue from, was this trial conducted in an appropriate fashion? And to me, the real problem, even, you can talk about the jury and the judge and all these different things.
Sure.
To me, the real problem is how these charges were constructed by the prosecutor in a way that charges have not been constructed in the past, and in a way that certainly wouldn't have happened if Donald Trump wasn't running for president. That is the real, to me, villain here in how this trial played out is Alvin Bragg.
And the judge didn't do the system any favors either, in my opinion, obviously. And to your point, Dennis Quaid, the actor, which you know how an actor coming out and saying anything pro-Trump, you're pretty much done.
Right.
You understand, right? But he said basically he didn't want to vote for Trump, but this weaponization of the judicial system.
He's got both Quaids now, Trump.
Yes, he does. Which,
I figured he already had Randy. So,
you got to assume, right?
Dennis is
I hear he's
a little bit different animal than his brother. So
I hear Randy's on the short list for VP. Did you?
Listen, after what he did in Independence Day, saving America, that was impressive.
But I just thought that was interesting. Him saying, I didn't really even want to vote for this guy. I'm paraphrasing.
Right.
I didn't want to vote for this guy, but I can't stand what they're doing to this country.
And I think there's a lot of independent voters that's going to be their reaction to this, going, "Oh boy, this is not right. This is not," because your average independent voter, they're independent for a reason. They're not ideological.
Right.
They're not wedded to one side or the other, and they get really anxious and really angry about things that are not fair.
Right.
Because they just want things to be fair.
That's all.
They just want things to be open and transparent and fair. And this clearly violates that. And so I think you're going to have, from a good chunk of independent voters, that type of reaction that you're seeing from
it was weird.
Mr.
I'm quoting Dennis Quaid. Yes,
right,
it's kind of weird.
Right.
But I do think it's going to have a consequence for the future, because now that they think, especially if they win, if at the end of the day the smoke clears, Biden becomes reelected, this definitely isn't going away.
Well, this tactic now worked.
Yeah.
And
you don't take something out of your playbook if it wins.
I think you'd be naive to believe that this isn't going to be used against
Nikki Haley,
the next Republican nominee for president. I mean, every time there's a Republican nominee for president, at that moment they're the biggest boogeyman in the world. Think of all the things they said about John McCain when he was
John McCain, who the media was supposed to love because he was a maverick.
Oh, they all sorts of goofy stuff coming out of him that was really iffy. Mitt Romney, they went after the same way. Oh, he's talking about his dog on his roof.
Yeah, binders for women. He wanted some lady to die from cancer. Remember, that's how despicable
they were making up all sorts of crazy stuff against people that they now praise because they were, iffy on Trump. So it doesn't matter whether you're Donald Trump, doesn't matter Mitt Romney, doesn't matter whether you're John McCain or George Bush or Bob Dole or whoever.
Yeah.
If you're the Republican nominee for president of the United States, the full weight of the left and their allies in the media come down on you. And now it's not just their allies in the media, it's their allies in the judicial system, the criminal justice system. And so if this tactic works, that is my fear that this is not the last time we'll see.
I agree. And the reason I mentioned Nikki Haley is because people said, well, I wanted to vote for Nikki Haley because I don't want the chaos. Nikki Haley, if she would have got the nomination day one, she would have been public enemy number one from the media. So it doesn't change. And I think it's naive to think, well, if we get somebody, because we hear this every time, somebody a little more moderate, it'll really bring the country together. The media is going to.
No, at this point, it's very difficult to bring the country together.
Yes.
We're culturally in very two different mindsets, different universes in some cases.
Yeah.
And so, no, I think that people should vote for who they want to vote for.
Yeah.
Right. But I think to say that, if we just give the Democrats what they want a little bit more and it'll be a little bit closer to them. No. If the person has an R on their jersey, the mainstream media and the left will come down on them like a ton of bricks. No matter who they are, no matter what positions they've taken on what issue.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
And that's why I was reading about the vetting process for these potential VPs. I thought you can vet as much. They're going to do whatever they can to destroy you.
If they can't find something, they'll make it up.
Yeah.
That's as simple as that is how the politics of personal destruction works in this country in many cases.
And I mean, that was the Trump administration. Think of how many scandals that we've forgotten by now.
Right.
That
how many of them were
never scandals?
False.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I mean. They
Frankly,
were completely made up.
If they had to get somebody turn a paperwork thing into 34 felonies, how clean is Donald Trump?
Yeah, seriously.
Is he the cleanest property developer in the history of Manhattan?
That's a great point. Yeah. Boy, what a mess that was. And it does, we can laugh about it and talk about it, but it does kind of break your heart to think that we're at that point in this country.
In a dangerous time for the Republic.
And how quickly that went.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And you see in other countries,
Yeah.
Vladimir Putin, if you're the person running against him, you disappear, you go to jail, you die under mysterious circumstances. That's not the direction we want to be going as a society. We have to have a situation where just because you don't think somebody should be president of the United States, the way you defeat them is at the ballot box.
Right.
Not the way that things are going. And it's a very dangerous time for the Republic.
Yeah. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Was your premature baby fed a cow's milk baby formula such as Similac or Enfamil? If so, your child may be entitled to significant financial compensation. Evidence shows that cow's milk formulas increase the risk of NEC in premature babies, causing severe harm and even death. If your child was born premature and suffers from NEC, intestinal perforations, sepsis, cerebral palsy, or died as a result, you may have the right to sue for significant financial compensation. Call now for a free case review.
Your envisions start making memories. It's Salen's 6 Hours of the Glen, the ultimate start to summer. Be here as IMSA's top drivers go head-to-head on one of the most historic courses in racing. Get your tickets at theglen.com today. Start adrenaline rush. Start exploring the paddock. Start a weekend you'll never forget. It's Salen's 6 Hours of the Glen, the ultimate start to summer. Get your tickets and secure your camping spot at theglen.com today.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
Order call 1-800-970-9843. That's 1-800-970-9843, or go to getbullseyepro.com.
Major League Baseball on Fox.
What I'm doing, getting right to it. Money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I do it. Yeah, can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, spin on live, you don't believe it, just watch.
Jaw-dropping stuff.
Major League Baseball all season long on Fox.
WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben Senior Services section of our program, and this is a bonus interview because of the technical issues that we had earlier with Joe Sempolinski, former congressman. You have the longest titles. Former congressman, current assembly candidate, chairman of the Steuben County Republicans,
and all-around great guy.
All-around great guy. Yes, I want to talk a little bit about Hunter, but not too much in depth because it's obviously still ongoing. It's just the startling contrast between Trump and Hunter and Trump.
I think what frustrates your average person, and again, I'm trying to look at this from the perspective of your average, like, independent voter or whatever. I think what frustrates the average person, I've had this conversation with average people, is if you or I or anybody we knew was on tape
Yes.
doing the things that Hunter Biden is on tape doing.
Yeah. His own audiobook.
He's recording. I don't know why he's recording.
Why does he take so many pictures and record so many things?
I mean, the guy's clearly messed up.
He must think he's untouchable.
Yeah, well,
he may be.
Think he does think
he may be.
And so, if you or I were on tape, smoking crack, waving guns, prostitutes, these sort of things, we would be in jail.
No doubt about
Those things are illegal.
Yes.
You can't just smoke crack rocks with prostitutes and wave a gun around.
No.
Doesn't matter who your daddy is, at least you'd think.
Well, maybe Oregon.
Right. So when people see that, and it's not an allegation, it's not a rumor, it's not, some person who doesn't like him came out and said, I saw him doing this, or he said this nasty thing. It's his laptop, which, by the way, prior to the election in 2020, if you said that was his laptop, you got banned on social media. The New York Post got banned on social media for saying that was a legitimate issue that the public should know about, that the president or the former vice president at the time's son is smoking crack rocks with prostitutes and taping it.
Yeah.
That gets banned. Anybody else is in that situation, they go to jail.
Yes.
That's what ticks people off. You want to talk double standards in society. And now, he's on trial, gun charge. That's a step in the right direction. But the fact that it's taken this long, the fact that we couldn't even talk about it on social media, that was suppressed, that really angers your average person.
And what bothered me so much about that article that said, see, there is no two-tier justice system, everything's working fine. That makes you forget. You have to put this aside, that he had the most sweetheart of sweetheart plea deals, and his lawyer got too cocky, they got too cocky and wanted the world.
That's right.
And so there should be no trial today if they had their way. But it was Hunter Biden again, getting a little too big for his britches.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
What should they do to the 51 former intelligence officials that wrote that letter saying that it was Russian interference?
That's an excellent question. Right, because you have to also put this not in the context of Hunter Biden's ridiculous behavior.
Yeah.
And we're not even getting into marrying your brother, or dating your brother's widow, and who knows what's going on there. The tragic, in my opinion, situation with his daughter, who is barely acknowledged by the Biden family, who's supposed to be Mr. Family. So there's a lot going on with Hunter Biden. But let's also not forget the context of the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And how this was, as I said, suppressed. And how you had people who are putting their credibility on the line, saying, no, this is Russian interference, this is all made up, this is their playbook, whatever, when it was obviously true.
Yeah.
Obviously true. It wasn't one of the, it was AI constructed. This guy's a choir boy. He never would do drugs.
Yeah.
So clearly it was true, and these people then just made up that it wasn't and lied to the American people so Biden would win the election.
With the if you will, with the power of having that title of a former intelligence official.
Right. I mean, and with the how dare you question us sort of attitude that a lot of them were using. So that to me was one of the more aggressive episodes of election interference in the 2020 election, was how the Hunter Biden situation was handled prior to the election, and the full weight of censorship and the full weight of the establishment state saying, no, don't look here. If you look here, this is fake, or it's Russian, or whatever. That is very, very troublesome, very disturbing, and those folks, knowingly or unknowingly, really interfered in an election.
And isn't it interesting when you talk about election interference that we have a case that Bragg puts up that is essentially election interference. At face value, you have the election interference with a Hunter laptop, and yet somehow Trump's getting in trouble for it for some paperwork that I'm still not sure what at the end of the day was really the crime.
Well, the underlying crime, he said he didn't need to know, and you don't even have to agree, right? Because you needed an underlying crime to bump it from a misdemeanor to a felony. And the basic argument is that he made this payment, and making the payment itself is not illegal.
Right.
But because the payment was supposed to be to protect the election, that it's then an election expense, which needs to be, all election expenses need to be reported on your FEC report.
But this is federal. And how is Bragg, and now we're at the state. I mean, I know we're on the same page. So when I say I don't know, I see what it is.
The FEC side of it, that should be, if anything, an FEC violation probably just amending your FEC report.
Yeah.
Which is
pretty common.
Very common.
Yeah.
And not criminal. Or now you're talking about, well, it was because it was reported in the business records of the Trump Corporation. Well, Trump Corporation's a privately held company.
Yeah.
So you're talking about some person. I don't think Donald Trump's filing his own business records.
No.
He's
kind of a busy guy. Yeah.
And so somebody put it in the wrong bucket in a privately held company.
Yeah.
Well, if anything, that's some sort of paperwork misdemeanor and you pay a fine.
Exactly.
If anything.
And I like how they try to say
34 felony.
He had to know because he signed the checks. Do you think like he's actually sitting, like when you get the check in the mail, like he's literally signing every single check?
I mean,
I don't know how that's supposed to work, but I never believed
really a reach.
It really was. And that's why, like you said, with the judge.
And it's Alvin Bragg.
Yeah.
Alvin Bragg, you shoot somebody. He doesn't want to put you in jail.
Yeah, exactly.
You defend yourself in your bodega.
And you are put in jail.
And then he wants to put you in jail.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's friggin' Elliot Ness.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
I know. It really is. And to think what the judge was saying essentially is, well, if it's if you see someone with a wet umbrella, you can assume that it's raining outside. So if Donald Trump seems like a criminal, he must be a criminal. And you're saying that in New York.
That's a very dangerous standard.
Yeah, right? Beyond a reasonable doubt.
That is not how justice is
When I heard
work.
someone compare it this way, the way he presented to the jury, it was like a choose-your-own-adventure novel that we used to read in school where all pages lead to guilty.
That's right.
And that's exactly what it boiled down to. But what do you think this means? So he's getting sentenced. And I want to get your prediction on what you think the sentence will be. But he's getting sentenced, 3 or 4 days before the convention?
I think it's 3 days before the convention. Yeah.
So,
11th of July, I believe.
So are you preparing for a virtual convention where he will be in prison? And then, so I'll tell you what I think. And then you can say prison, house arrest, or nothing. Here's the thing. I think he can't throw him in prison. They already know the optics are horrible.
Right.
And what that would look like if he made his first call to the convention or whatever.
Yeah.
But I could see house arrest.
So if you said to me, this situation, and you just stripped all the names,
right? Sure.
I would say obviously it's probation.
Probation, yeah.
Obviously, but
yeah,
we're in uncharted waters.
We are.
We've never been in this situation as a republic. We've never been in this situation as a society. So if you ask me the question, what do I think should happen?
Mm-hmm.
What is fair? Probation.
Yeah.
It was fair, would have been an acquittal, but whatever.
Exactly.
What is going to happen? I'm less confident. I think there's a good chance because, as you said, the Democratic Party knows the optics are horrible.
Yeah.
And somebody puts a call in Alvin Bragg, tell him, hey, recommend something less. But the mindset may be once you open it up, you got to go all the way.
All in.
And
my only thought is
he's in Rikers, or he's sent off,
they would
upstate somewhere.
There's people that would love that, not realizing how it could be.
Yeah, all those people are already voting for Joe Biden.
Exactly.
So
I know.
So I don't know what's going to happen. I think I'd be in dangerous waters predicting.
Right.
I know what should happen.
Mm-hmm.
I know what's fair, but the Democratic Party has apparently a terminal case of TDS.
yeah, exactly.
And I don't know how crazy this is going to get. And I wouldn't be shocked if Donald Trump gets jail time.
Yeah.
And I am pained to say that.
I do. And that's why I've been saying the house arrest, only because they can say, because the media can spin it as he had 34 felonies.
Right.
He should be in jail.
Right.
And because people hear felonies and they hear found guilty, they don't realize it was a sham case. So they say 34 felonies. Yes, we don't want to do this to the country and see an ex-president in prison. So we're going to let him stay at his beautiful Mar-a-Lago estate, and then fully knowing that then he can't campaign.
One of the funny, when I put a little humor on it, one of
Yeah.
the funny things I've seen on social media is some people post, I think Zeldin was one of them, and some other folks, that he will be sentenced to 4 years of community service as president.
I like that. That's actually a good one. All right, we're going to take a
By
short
the people.
break. By the people,
Right,
that's right. We'll be right back. We're going to take a short break.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tub experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Attention, if you were a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and now have uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call now to see if you qualify. There's no fee unless we win your case.
The bathroom of your dreams is only a phone call away with BCI Bath and Shower. We can make your ordinary bath and shower extraordinary. This is not a cookie-cutter design. This is a complete custom build that will fit your every need. It's never been easier or more affordable than right now to get the bathroom of your dreams. We have the best monthly programs in the industry with payments as low as $99 per month or no payments, no interest for 18 months with approved credit. The hardest part of your new bathroom is gutting and building the tub and shower. If your bathing area is old, there could be damage behind the walls and possible mold and mildew, which can be a serious safety issue. At BCI, we don't cover a problem, we fix it. Call now to get a never clean glass treated door with a no-track system at half off for the first 50 callers. Factory trained, certified installers made in the USA and discounts for seniors and military. Call 800-704-1798. That's 800-704-1798.
Sheldon and Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we're joined by former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. During the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program, we still have a lot to get to. I'm going to ask you about VP, but there was 2 headlines that I saw yesterday when I was preparing for our interview yesterday until we lost power. Chris Matthews saying that it's very reasonable to assume that former President Donald Trump will become a dictator if elected.
You know, I mean, he's already been president.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a dictator. Mm-hmm. So I would say it is difficult to make that argument about somebody who has already been president and not been a dictator.
Don't you hate, too, when people do that? It's very reasonable, or we all agree. You know?
That's right.
It's like, that's a reasonable stance to take? Okay.
Right. It's very reasonable to say that the sky is polka dot.
It's very reasonable to say that's why Chris Matthews doesn't have the credibility he once had. Andrew McCabe also said that everyone in the law enforcement community and in the intelligence community is nervous that they're going to be thrown in jail or grabbed in some sort of extrajudicial detention by the president if he's elected president.
Oh, people are nervous that they'll be thrown in jail on trumped-up charges.
Huh.
Oh,
okay.
Well, that's already happening in our country.
Yeah,
and it's happening from Democrats.
Exactly. So who do you think the VP is going to be? Were you surprised? I was surprised by Rubio. I didn't realize his name was in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, I saw in everything needs to be taken with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
There was a rumor going around on social media. I'm going to say yesterday, but because of the power surge, it was actually 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And it had a list of 7. And I'm going to try to remember the 7 that and again, this is all rumor and conjecture.
Right.
I don't have any inside information
or
whatever. I think it was Donald, Stefanik, Burgum, Rubio, Carson, and I'm missing a couple. Vance.
Yeah.
And there was one other.
Did you say Scott? Tim Scott?
Tim Scott. Yeah. That's the 7th one.
Yeah.
So those 7, that's where the current rumor is.
Yeah.
That's probably a pretty good
list.
You never know. There could be somebody that you don't expect.
And with Trump, you never know.
With Trump,
right?
you really never
know.
So, those 7 each have their own strengths and weaknesses. The only ones on that list that I've personally met are the 2 House members, Ms. Stefanik, who's obviously from New York.
Of course.
I know pretty well. And Mr. Donalds, I had a chance to encounter when I was in D.C. So, that was a list that struck me as, if that is the real list,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know,
right?
It's not crazy to imagine that it is.
Right,
those are
I
all
agree.
people that you would think might be in the mix and in the discussion. And again, they all have strengths and weaknesses. You have ones that have served in executive positions.
Sure.
You have ones that have been, particularly aggressively pro-Trump. You have ones that are, maybe a little bit different spin on things. That's why as you mentioned Rubio, where maybe
that's not knocking him. I just
it's
for
just
whatever reason I
yeah.
would have never thought he was on the list.
Yeah, and I think he obviously brings some wonderful things to the party as well. So, the vice presidential pick is tricky because sometimes you want to balance the ticket, you get somebody that's different from you.
Right.
Sometimes you double down. Like for instance, when Clinton picked Al Gore.
Right.
Two guys from the same, one from Tennessee, one from Arkansas.
Yeah.
That was, everybody goes, oh, wait a minute. And they sort of just doubled down on what they were already presenting to the country. What makes it particularly difficult to analyze is anytime you're talking about a large group of people, all the goofiness sort of cancels out.
Right.
And you can sort of make very accurate predictions. It's one person's decision. It's Donald Trump's decision.
Yep.
He may wake up the day before the convention and be like, nah, I don't want any of these people. I want Frank Acom.
Yeah.
And he's the one
I'm busy.
ultimately making the call. So it's tough to predict. And, for instance, Cheney and Bush.
Yeah.
Cheney was the guy they hired to vet the VP candidates, and Bush said, I want to make him do it. So you get those sort of very unpredictable scenarios.
I want Tim Scott just because I interviewed him.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So
I've never met Senator Scott, but no, he would be. That's also Scott would be very strong.
I think there's not a bad choice on here. I will say there's a few that I don't know as much about, like Burgum. I just don't know a ton, and that's again just not following his career. But none of those are a bad pick at the end of the day, in my opinion. Moving along, I do want to get to some local issues. Do you think what is going on with RFK Jr.?
The brainworm?
Yeah, I know. I don't think, we haven't talked since that. Is that his nickname? That's so funny.
You're in a great spot when the thing people remember about your presidential campaign is a worm ate my brain, but I'm okay now.
I'm okay.
Everything's fine.
That's
RFK Jr., and I've said this on the program before, continues to be one of the more bizarre and unusual people in America, in American politics. So he's nothing if not entertaining.
Exactly.
By all reports, he's going to be on the ballot in New York. He filed the petitions to run as an independent.
He's suing because it costs so much in some.
Yeah, and he's suing because it's a very difficult. You need 45,000 signatures.
But he paid everybody $90 an hour.
Yeah, but he still filed 4 times what
he
needed.
$90 an hour isn't what minimum wage is up to in New York. Is it?
In New York, if it was, there'd be protests to raise it.
Exactly.
That guy, again, he's entertaining just in the sense that he says things that are. You make you go, huh?
Yeah.
But what remains to be seen, and it varies from week to week.
It really does. Day to day.
Yeah. Who is he drawing from?
Yeah.
At the moment, it looks like he's drawing more from Biden.
Mm-hmm. But then there was one state they said it was hurting Trump.
Yeah, and so that's the other piece is this isn't a national thing. This is state by state. So he may, you could imagine a scenario where a third-party candidate draws more from one side in the popular vote, but because there's in the swing states, they're doing something different that they actually affect the election the other way.
Yeah,
those are possibilities. So he is a factor that is significant, but we don't yet know in what direction or to what degree.
Yes,
and makes everything more interesting. And I believe if he's very close to hitting the polling threshold for the CNN debate.
Yeah.
So
CNN's trying.
I don't think it's gonna happen, but it's possible that you do get a 3-way debate in the earliest debate ever by far,
which is nuts.
And who knows what happens?
Doesn't that debate show, in my opinion, a weakness from Biden?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he should not be as sitting president asking for a debate.
Absolutely.
And do you think that Trump really called his bluff? Because I think Biden was trying to get out of it, honestly. So if Trump goes, I don't like these rules. You've got too many rules. I'm not going to do it. He can go, see, you said anytime, anywhere, any place. I don't have to do it. Trump called his bluff and he might not like the rules, but he's going for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody somewhere, that shows absolutely weakness. You're the sitting president of the United States.
Yes.
It's like boxing.
Yeah,
or Ric Flair. To be the man, you got to beat the man, right?
Yeah.
So if you're the incumbent, they got to come to you.
Yeah.
The champion sort of has that
the power
situation. Yeah. And for the incumbent to go after the challenger, you don't do that unless your internal polls are
really
bad. So yes, absolutely weakness, unquestionably.
Speaking of his polling being bad, You've seen this decision that he's making with Israel to appease these radical anti-Semites. It's driving me crazy. So he's hurting our relationship with our ally. And then you see the executive order.
On the border.
First of all, is anybody... Here I'm doing the same thing. No one believes, but does anybody believe that after 3.5 years of doing nothing, that now he's tough on the border?
Chris Matthews believes it.
Yeah, he does. He does.
So what sort of doesn't pass the smell test with the executive order is, they take a lot of executive action, and you have tape on the Secretary of Homeland Security bragging about it early in the administration. That, we undid all Trump stuff. Suddenly there's a crisis at the border. They claim there's no crisis, there's no crisis, there's no crisis. And then there is a crisis, but there's nothing I can do. And
I've done all I can do.
I've done all I can do. And then suddenly he can do something.
Yes. And it's the Republicans' fault.
And you had Kathy Hochul.
Yeah.
I don't know why Kathy Hochul
Why was she there?
I don't know. The erstwhile governor
She's going
of New
everywhere.
York.
She's jumping around everywhere. She's got something in her sleeve.
She's having some problems.
Yeah.
So she's down there saying it's somehow the Republicans are soft on the board. Like, they are
no one knows.
Grasping at straws on this. And by the way, the executive order still says there's a threshold you have to hit. It's, I think, with 2,500 a day.
Yeah.
So you're locking in almost a million.
Yeah, $1 million a year.
So it's really not that tough on the border, and it's unclear what he has the power to do, what he doesn't have the power to do, what he should be doing, what needs to be statute.
And they're literally telling the cartels, this is the ways you can avoid it.
Right. Yeah, right. They have all different things that don't apply, that are sort of these gaping loopholes.
So here's my card with the English that says exactly why we're here.
And I'll come back to the common theme I have every time we're on the show. Mm-hmm. And I think this is another example of it. The Democratic platform, the Democratic argument is predicated on their assumption that the American people are not that bright.
Right.
And that is a false assumption.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the convicted felon label,
sure,
whether it's somehow now the Republicans are the ones that won't secure the border because they wouldn't agree to a baloney false compromise in the legislature because it wasn't tough enough.
Right.
These things, they assume you're not paying attention, and they assume that you're only listening to sound bites, and you're only listening to their sound bites.
Exactly.
And that, is the average person a total political junkie? No. But the average person thinks about these things before they vote for more than 2 seconds.
Exactly.
The average person is living their life and seeing what the prices are on things and seeing the effects of federal policies and state policies on their lives. So the average person is far more savvy and far more aware of how government is affecting their life, positively or negatively, than the Democrats' entire strategy is based on.
So I do want to talk about local races because that's really why we had you in here today. There's just so much to talk about. But I got this comment yesterday. We had, if you're just joining us, you didn't know, yesterday we lost power at the transmitter and we had some technical difficulties.
And just be clear, it wasn't us.
It wasn't us. We had no.
For a minute there, we thought
it was.
But no, it was a whole system-wide thing.
Yes, it was. And I received this comment from a viewer. I enjoyed the 46 minutes I had with Frankly Speaking this morning, and please tell Joe Sempolinski I enjoyed the 1 minute we had.
Isn't that
nice?
Isn't that
very nice? So that 1 minute was a
special.
We're
going to give him
minute.
another little dose the next day.
Exactly. So everything's fine. It all works out. It all comes out in the wash. So how are things going? Yes, of course. How are things going in your race?
Good.
For Assembly?
No, things are going great. As the folks know, I'm running for the State Assembly in 148th Assembly District, which is the western part of your this media market.
Yeah.
So the folks that are in western Steuben County that pick up Frankly Speaking can vote for me. And then going west into Allegheny and Cattaraugus County. But it's going very well. Fundraising is going well. The response from the folks is going well. I enjoy being out and about in the community, and I'll be... you
were at the Dairy Festival? I saw that picture.
I was at the Dairy Festival. That's actually in Mr. Palmisano's district, but I was there with my successor in the House. Mr. Langworthy was in town, and as the county Republican chairman, when the congressman comes to town, I'll walk next to him and wave to the folks and let the kids throw out the candy. And we had a good discussion about the Farm Bill and the work he's doing on the Agriculture Committee. So that was good. So that's part of it I enjoy. I enjoy being out talking to people. Certainly in Bath, there's people from all over Steuben County that come to the Dairy Festival. And there was folks from far and wide that were there. That was great. And we'll this morning as I'm sitting here, whatever day this airs, I'm in Corning right now, but I'll be in Olean this evening, and talking to folks about the assembly campaign. So no, it's going very well.
That's
and
good.
If you want to chip in or help, it's joesemplinsky.com.
Perfect. And now, what about the local races? Because you are the chairman of the Steuben County Republican Committee. What are we looking at? I think last time we talked, things are pretty much, the smoke is clear, but there's a new issue, but there's something coming up about the judge.
There's another race on the ballot that wasn't on the ballot before. So first of all, petitions went very well. So thank you to all the petition carriers out there. I was very pleased. But since we last talked, there are now two county judicial positions.
Oh, okay, interesting.
They'll be on the ballot. In addition, so there'll be two state judge positions. They're not running against each other. That was already planned to be there. The county circuit court judge position was already planned to be on the ballot. And now the county and family court judicial position, another county judge position, will be on the ballot. That is the one that was most recently held until just a few days ago by Phil Roach. Mm-hmm. And Phil resigned because he wanted to retire.
Good for him.
It was his time to retire, and he felt. And so the timing of that, since it was after petitions, but still early enough to put it on the ballot, is that will go on the ballot this year. We'll have a party meeting mechanism to put whoever the nominee is on the ballot. That'll happen in a few weeks, where the committee will vote, and it's one of the reasons why being on the committee, what I described to folks, the day-to-day is doing petitions and knocking on doors and that sort of thing. But every time there's like a vacancy like this, it becomes important decision-making. So we're taking it very seriously, and I think we're going to put a very qualified candidate on the ballot here in a few weeks.
And we'll break the news because I'll be at the meeting. So
you're on the committee.
The next day on the show, I'll bring it up. But I do think that's important. I'm glad that you stress that, because I know so often on the show we say, how do we get involved? Right. And if you get on the committee and do petitions, you're everybody's best friend. People don't realize it. Right. So many people say we want to do something. This is the best way. Get involved. How do they get involved?
Well, they can send me a note on our Facebook page, or my email is joe.semplinsky@gmail. That's my personal email. You can send that to me. We're always looking to get people involved, and it is, I wouldn't say petitions are the most fun thing in the world, but they're very important. They put people on the ballot, and you get a chance to actually get a good feeling of the pulse of the community where you live. And each person will go out in their sort of neighborhood, and many hands make light work. And those folks then not only get signatures, but they also get feedback for the party and feedback for our elected officials as to what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing.
And also later on in the season, when you're helping the candidate, there's something really rewarding about it, being on the committee at the end of the day in November, especially in a presidential year.
Yeah.
I mean,
so we were going to have this year contested races for the presidency, for U.S. Senate, for both of the congressional districts that touch Steuben County now, for 2 of the 3 assembly districts. Those will all be contested general elections.
So there you go. Well, Joe, thanks for doing this. Sorry about the hiccup yesterday, but I think it all came out perfect.
No, it's all good.
I think it was good.
Yeah.
So I think we had some fun with the trial. And that's why I'm glad you came on. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
All right.
Our water's better tasting. It's better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Rated hearing aids of 2023 by Forbes, the Audion Atom 2 series offers superior sound quality and functionality for a fraction of the price. For just $189 a pair, the Atom 2 features 4 different hearing modes for all types of hearing loss. It packs crystal clear sound, a nearly invisible design, and is even rechargeable.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids. They're so comfortable, I forget I'm wearing them. And the sound is amazing.
The Atom Pro 2 is our smallest hearing aid yet, featuring advanced background noise cancellation, and is the world's first hearing aid with built-in UV cleaning that kills 99% of bacteria.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed without seeing a doctor or having a hearing test.
Join over 500,000 happy customers today and get the hearing you deserve.
Call 1-800-434-9816 or go to audionhearing.com to get your pair of Audien hearing aids starting at just $189.
It's a new season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my number one goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app. Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Thank you to former Congressman Joe Sempolinski for being our guest. Yes, he was scheduled to be on yesterday, but we lost power to the transmitter. So we recorded that yesterday, but during that interview, I received quite a few comments. And as you can imagine, we're running very late on time. But I thought I'd go through your comments, then we come back, wrap some things up. The term criminal justice system has an entirely new meaning for me. That's a very good point when you think about it. When you dissect criminal justice system. Next comment. Would it be worth it for Trump to run ads showing all the affiliations and money taken in by the Bidens? Explain why Biden is so soft on China, Russia, and Iran. Show the kickback checks to the big guy. Here's the only problem I have with that. So many people are foreign to that idea because the media hasn't covered it, that it would almost have to be an infomercial to get people to be caught up on it. Because if someone watches the legacy media, just like we're seeing now with the Hunter Biden trial, the legacy media forcing their viewers through the history of what happened because they never reported on in the first place. Remember, all of the places, NPR wouldn't even report on the laptop, calling it false information, so many others. But yet the laptop was used as evidence and admitted by the defense that it was indeed Hunter's laptop, by the FBI, that it was indeed Hunter's laptop. So very interesting concept. I like the idea. I just don't know if it's feasible, unfortunately. Next comment from a viewer. And this is in reference to something Joe and I were talking about. I think Trump would still get 40 to 100,000 people at multiple locations doing virtual rallies on Zoom with local political celebrities at each location and his VP pick at a major place. I would agree. I think they would still go well. Almost like the old closed circuit fights, people would go and attend. I do. I think if he has some local people, some like he used to have, like I remember Joe Arpaio went to a few, one I was at, some, famous political people. I don't know why I'm overthinking it. Next, why aren't charges brought for clear violation of immigration law? That's a great question. It's like everything else. There seems to be this lawlessness. And yes, it's for political gain. And this viewer believes that it's treason in his book. And many have made that same claim that it's treason. I guess there's some things that can go unanswered when we see things that should obviously brought up on charges that just in the political swamp of Washington get ignored. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Attention, if you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and now have uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call now to see if you qualify. There's no fee unless we win your case.
I'm Marianne Burke. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
Enjoy store-wide savings with up to 20% off your entire purchase during Ray Moore and Flanagan's Summer Savings Event. The more you buy, the bigger your discount. And with delivery in 3 days or less, you can upgrade your home in no time. Plus, enjoy deals on top mattress brands. Mattresses are in stock and ready for free next-day delivery. Or want to buy now and pay later? Take advantage of no-interest financing for 72 months. Get up to 20% off your entire purchase during Ray Moore and Flanagan's Summer Savings Event.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox. The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
Are back, wrapping things up on this morning's edition of Frankly Speaking. I did not realize this. I missed it. Trump was on Dr. Phil yesterday, saying you have to be very strong. You're fighting very evil forces and you're very smart forces. There are people that control Biden. Totally true. I think I know who they are largely. But there are people that control him. They're very smart, very energetic. Possibly they're real believers. What their sick ideology is. But you have to be smart and you have to have confidence. And he was asked about revenge, and he said revenge can be justified. I think you have so much to do, you don't have time to get even. You only have time to get right. He added, there's an addiction to revenge just like the opioids or whatever. Trump said the word revenge is a very strong word. My intro ran long again. I apologize. I'm not sure why that happened so much today. That's on me. It's not a big conspiracy like losing the transmitter power yesterday. Don't worry. This one is on me. But Trump said the word revenge is a very strong word, but maybe we'll have revenge through success. And I like how he says that. He's been saying that on the regular. But what's bothering me is that the media is taking out of context and saying, oh, he's out for revenge. There's going to be so much revenge. But it's like he said himself. Listen, that's why I didn't go after Hillary. The country does not want this. And by the way, as that piece we had earlier from the New York Post said, if there is revenge, it's because of the revenge that the Democrats have shown time and time again with all of the charges against Trump, all the trials, the felony charges on something that no one else would be charged with if their name weren't Donald Trump. They asked him, Dr. Phil asked about the hush money guilty verdict. He said, the hardest part for me is probably my family because it's very unfair to my family. I have a very good wife. She reads this garbage, we'll say. I have great kids. Asked how the former first lady was holding up. He said, I think good, but I don't think it's an easy thing for her. And I think it wasn't good. She wouldn't want to tell me about it, to be honest. All right, that does it for today. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the waves. I want to thank former Congressman and current Assembly candidate Joe Sempolinski for being our guest. That was obviously, as you know, recorded yesterday. And I appreciate him taking a little extra time out when the transmitter went down to spend some time and get that interview that I promised you. On Monday's show, we'll be talking with author of the Michael Bishop Mystery Series novels, books, Tony Pucci. He'll be our guest on Monday, so you will not want to miss that. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will be back Monday morning, starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, I look forward to it already.
Getting aerial video for a commercial used to be extremely expensive, but not anymore. WYDC TV Big Fox now offers the Twin Tiers amazing aerial video for your business. We do it with our state-of-the-art drone and commercially licensed aerial pilot. Beautiful HD aerial video and pictures custom-made for your commercial. Call or email now to advertise on Big Fox TV and let everyone see your business in a whole new way.